Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. So today we are going to continue to study the very important part 3 of the book 4. And the part 3 of the book 4, as we have seen in the previous class, is titled as the Buddhist way of life. And in that we have covered the subsection number 1 on good, evil and sin. And we have seen in that section as to how Baba Saheb Ambedkar has presented the Buddha's teaching as something which we have to do. And the title itself, the first verse was, do good, be no party to evil, commit no sin, is in a way we have seen captures the essence of the Buddha's teachings. Now coming back to the subsection 2, and I think this part 3 is very important for all of us as to how to bring Buddhism in our day-to-day life, as to how to live a life as a Buddhist, as a follower of the Buddha, taking the Buddha as a teacher. And therefore, I think we should look at this section in terms of the practice as to how these values can be brought into our own lives. So today, the subsection is titled as on craving and lust. So the first was about doing good, and the second is on craving and lust. And I'm going to read through it, and then I'm going to gloss over the sentences in this particular subsection. So on craving and lust, 1, do not be possessed by craving nor by lust. Okay, so craving is, of course, in Pali, tanna, means to crave for somebody, something, some object, or even people. And the word for lust is also, a lobha, or, this, going after the sensual pleasures. And the second verse, as Baba Ambedkar says, this is the Buddhist way of life. So, we all the time are craving for something, and we lust after something. And as Baba Ambedkar says, do not be possessed by craving. Possessed has a very deep connotation here. Possessed means something which has taken complete hold of us. There are some desires, like the desire to have food, desire to have sleep, desire to have drink, would desire to have water. They are all natural desires. But sometimes our minds are possessed or overtaken by craving and by lust. And we have seen in ourselves and in the society around us and people around us that how do the people are overtaken or possessed by craving nor by lust. So in a way, Baba Ambedkar is saying that we have to loosen the hold of craving and lust that's there on our mind. And I think that's very important, because Baba Ambedkar is saying that here he's emphasizing a very important point, and that is what the Buddha also emphasized, in a sense that the craving for sensual pleasure, the craving for status, the craving for the immaterial world, like craving for life after death, and there are a lot of different ways by which the Buddha has defined craving. So this particular sentence is very important for us to understand when we are living the Buddhist way of life. Now the verse number 3, not in the reign of riches is satisfaction of desire to be found. So there is no end to the desires, because there are unlimited desires. The desire has no end. The craving has no end. Look at the beauty of this sentence. Not in a reign of riches is satisfaction of desire to be found. So how much material things we acquire, how much rich we become, Even if it's raining, the richness is raining, even then the satisfaction of desire is not to be found, because the nature of the desire is not to be satisfied. And we have seen in the previous sort of classes that Baba Ambedkar had fond of quoting this beautiful gatha from Dhamma Pasantutti Paramadhana. There is no wealth higher than the contentment. And it doesn't mean that, when we practice the Buddhist way of life, we cannot pursue richness. We have to, of course, pursue wealth. We have to, of course, pursue what is called the comforts of, that bring comforts that makes our human life easy. So, in a way, as we have seen elsewhere, Baba Ambedkar is saying that the Buddha has never taught to ennoble the poverty. He said that the poverty is a suffering. The material needs cause a lot of suffering to the human being. So it's not that the Buddhist doesn't have to crave for richness. They have to, of course, earn wealth by the righteous ways, and of course they have to be able to enjoy the benefits of the richness. But that doesn't mean that the reign of richness or riches is will lead to the satisfaction of the desire. Unsatisfying, grievous are desires. So the desires, as this beautiful word says, unsatisfying. The desires by their nature are unsatisfying and they're grievous. So the wise man well knows. And we know by our experience, we crave for something, and then when we have it, then we automatically lose that excitement that the object gives us, isn't it? So most of the times we anticipate the satisfaction when we acquire that object, but it never happens like that. Our cravings are repeated again and again. They take birth again and again, and that is what the Buddha taught in the Sacred Noble Truth, in a sense that yayang tanna pono bhavika nandi raga sahagata tatra tatra bhindini. Because the tanna or a craving is like this, that it emerges again and again, pono bhavika. Okay, Yayang tanna pono bhavika nandi raga sahagata. The desire is always endowed with pleasure. Nandi raga sahagata. Okay, tatra tatra bhindini. It dwells here and there. So if we look at our minds, we see that our mind is craving for desire all the time. In here and there, all over the places, our mind is running and jumping to seek the desires. And we know that the desires by nature are unsatisfying. We satisfy for some time and we again crave for more. So not in the reign of riches is satisfaction of desire to be found. Unsatisfying, grievous are desires. So the wise man well knows. That's how the wise man knows. So the verse number 4 goes like this: even in the pleasures of heaven worlds, he takes no delight. His delight is in the ending of craving. He is the disciple of the supremely awakened one, the Buddha. Now, see, how does the supremely awakened one's disciple, lives? They even don't desire the pleasures of the heaven worlds. So even the Buddha says that, whatever that allures our mind, we shouldn't be attached anywhere. We shouldn't crave for sensuality. We shouldn't crave for pleasure. He takes no delight, but his delight is in the ending of craving. You see, there are two kinds of pleasures that the Buddha has talked about. The pleasure of indulgence, when our senses are indulged into some sensual objects, we derive pleasures, but those pleasures by nature are unsatisfying, isn't it? And once we enjoy those objects, they no longer give us delight. So Buddha says that there is one level of this sukh or pleasure, that is kama sukh, and there is another kind of sukh, that is nekhamma sukh, by giving up the craving, by ending the craving. And we have seen that in the Buddhism, Baba Ambedkar has emphasized the point that the Buddha has always emphasized, that Nibbana is a param sukham. If you want to enjoy or experience the highest bliss, there cannot be any other higher bliss than the bliss of Nibbana. And how does one experience the bliss of Nibbana? By doing away with craving, by doing away with hatred, and by doing away with ignorance. So the more our mind becomes devoid of what is called the three poisons, raga, dosa, and moha, the more our minds become blissful. The kind of peace, the kind of bliss that we experience by giving up craving, it's not comparable to the pleasure that one gets by experiencing the sensual objects. And that's why I think the verse number 4 is so important. And let's read it again. Even in the pleasures of the heaven words he takes no delight. The best of the objects. So even if you look at the heaven as a metaphor of something, of some realm having all the pleasures of eyes, all the pleasures of ears, all the pleasures of nose, all the pleasures of taste, all the pleasures of touch, all the pleasures of mind, the Buddha says that even in the pleasures of heaven words he takes no delight, because we all always craving for one object after another. And what Buddha is saying here, that that's ultimately is going to lead to unsatisfaction, dissatisfaction, and hence suffering. So where does lies the permanent happiness? That's what Baba Ambedkar says here. Taking a very important teachings of the Buddha, his delight is in the ending of craving. So when the craving is ended, there is the emergence of Nibbana, which is compared to the experience of bliss, peace, and the highest happiness. The verse number 5 goes like this: from craving is born sorrow, tanaya jayati soko. From craving is born fear, tanaya jayati bhayang. To him who is wholly free from craving, there is neither sorrow nor fear. Very beautiful gatha from Dhammapad. Pemato jayati soko, pemato jayati bhagayam bhayam, pemato vipamuttasa, kuto soko, kuto bhayam. And this verse gets repeated like this: kamato jayati soko, kamato jayati bhayam, kamato vipamuttasa, kuto soko, kuto bhayam. Then the kamato things goes into lobha. Lobha to jayati soko, lobha to jayati bhayam, lobha to vipamuttasa, kuto soko, kuto bhayam. Where is sorrow and where is fear? So let's read it again, the verse number 5 and verse number 6. Actually, they are the same verses. But you see gradually how the lobha means craving for some sensual object, then kama, indulgence into the sensual object, and pema means love of the sensual object. How all that leads to sorrow, how that all leads to fear, because if we love something or somebody, we have a fear of losing it, we have a fear of loss, isn't it? So the verse number 5, which is very beautifully put here from the Dhammapad, is from craving is born sorrow, from craving is born fear. To him who is wholly free from craving, there is neither sorrow nor fear. The verse number 6 is the same, but you can understand the point that Baba Ambedkar has emphasized as to how tanna, how this karma, how the love leads to the sorrow and fear. So the verse number 6 is mere repetition, but the point of repetition is to emphasize the point, isn't it? When something is repeated all the time, that means we can understand the importance of that repetition. So here Baba Sahib quotes the Buddha from Dhammapad like this: from craving is born sorrow, from craving is born fear. To him who is wholly free from craving there is neither sorrow nor fear. Verse number 7: he who gives himself to vanity, forgetting the real aim of life and grasping at pleasure, will in time envy him who has exerted himself in meditation. You see, this verse number 7 is very interesting, because most of the time we contrast the indulgence of mind into the sensual world of the sense objects, isn't it? And the more we give ourselves to it, instead of involving in sati, instead of involving in observing our mind, body, we give in ourselves to the sensual objects. And the Buddha says that the sensual objects are like the butchers or like hunters. They hunt us away. They cause us death in many forms. They are like, we have to guard our minds from these six sensual objects all the time, because they lure us outside. And then if we give ourselves to this vanity, forgetting the real aim of life, what is the real aim of life? Is to become awakened, is to become truly human. And elsewhere, Baba Ambedkar says, the how the importance of not grasping at pleasure, and the Buddha has explained it very beautifully. That if anybody would like to become a great man or a great woman, they should practice the sati or meditation. And this is very important, that when we talk about, where do we cultivate our awareness if not on the sensual objects, because the sensual objects are all the time pulling ourselves out. So we should cultivate our awareness on of our body and mind, so that we know for sure what is the nature of mind and what is the nature of body. And by that experience of the nature of body and mind, we can become free. And when we become free, we can become a better human being, maybe a great human being. So you see, this verse number 7 is very profound. It's like there are two ways available for human beings, either to pursue the life of pleasure, grasping here and there all the time, or to exert oneself in meditation. Now, exertion is all about making efforts. So, the Buddha's Dhamma is about making efforts. Buddha's Dhamma is not to lose ourselves, into the sensual world, but to make efforts to come out of the slavery of the sensuality. And to be really a free person, or to be really a great person, it's very important for all of us to exert ourselves in meditation. So this verse number 7 is so profound that the implication of it can only be found in reference to what we have been studying. So you see, when we are talking about the Buddhist way of life, there was some issue. Am I clear now?
Yes.
Okay. Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. So you see, this verse number 7 is very profound. If we look at the verse number 7, he who gives himself to vanity, forgetting the real aim of life. Now we all should know what is the real aim of our life. The most important thing for us as a human being is to know what is the most important thing for me. Why am I living for? What is it? Why do I really exist? We should all try to know it. And most of the times we live for the services of our senses, always indulging here and there, with the objects that are, created by our sense doors. So you see, Baba Ambedkar is saying that, as a Buddhist way of life, we should exert ourselves in meditation. What is meditation? Is nothing but sati. And elsewhere, Baba Ambedkar has defined sati as a gatekeeper. Doa rikuviya sati. What does the gatekeeper does? The gatekeeper watches the mind all the time. It guards the mind. It tries to know what is happening in the mind without judging it. It tries to know what's coming inside and going outside. That's the job of the gatekeeper. And that's what the sati does to us. It guards our mind. Verse number 8 goes like this: let no man have attachment to anything. Now, this is a very fearful statement. What the Buddha is effectively saying, that no, we should not be attached to anything. Now, the word here is anything. We should not be attached to anything. Now, what happens then? What happens? If we don't, our mind is not attached to anything, then what happens to the mind? Our mind becomes totally free. And when our mind is become totally free, when we are not attached to anything, then that mind becomes a very powerful mind. That's the mind of the Buddha, which is not attached to anything. And that is the ultimate sati, or ultimate meditation. Not to be attached to any sense objects, not to be attached to any situation, not to be attached to any ideas, just to have that open and free mind. The mind that is not rigid, the mind that is not concrete, but that mind which functions from that experience of being unattached, detached mind. Because all the time our mind is taking side, our mind is being judgmental, or because our minds are judgmental, our views of the world and the reality is clouded. Therefore, we should not be attached to anything, even if it's pleasurable thing. We should not be attached. Even if it's painful thing, we should not be attached. The more we attach to it, the more it leads to suffering for us. If we are attached to 1,000 things, there will be 1,000 ways by which we suffer. If we attach to 100 things, by 100 ways we will suffer. So, it's very beautiful that, the Buddha teaches as an ultimate practice is to be detached from everything, because our mind has a tendency to attach all the time. We are so much attached. We hold on. Craving is like holding on to something. But can we really hold on to something? We can never do that. Because even if we hold on to ourselves, our bodies, we know by nature, our bodies are going to decay one day, or we are going to die, and our bodies are going to decay. However, we try hard to attach with our minds change every moment, all the time. If we try to get hold of our 5 skandhas, Rupa, Vedana, Sadhya, Sankhara, and Vijnana, we can never do that. Rupa, Vedana, Sadhya, Sankhara, Vijnana, we can never manipulate them. The Buddha taught us just to observe them, just to be mindful of them. And that mindfulness leads to understanding or realizing the true nature of Rupa, Vedana, Sadhya, Sankhara, and Vijnana. In the ultimate analysis, they are called Nama Rupa. And the Buddha says, do not be attached to Nama Rupa. Do not be attached to anything. Now, how does that mind will be which is unattached? That mind will be so free, so malleable, so fluid, so serviceable that we cannot imagine. Only when we practice this kind of meditation of non-attachment, the things begin to, appear very differently, because of our attachment to certain views, because of our attachment to certain sensual objects. Our whole mind is clouded and we don't see the way it is. So if we want to experience the world, the nature, or our minds the way it is, we have to throw away everything. And that is what is called the emptiness. And the Buddha says that in the ultimate stages of meditation, you throw away everything. You give back what you have borrowed. Because all the time we have borrowed everything. My body is borrowed from the nature. My thoughts, sometimes they are not my own. They are borrowed from some people. Everything is borrowed. So when we return everything back, we are burden free. And the Buddha says in the Bhara Sutra that when you detach yourself from these 5 skandhas or Nama Rupa, then you are unburdened. You are debt free, isn't it? And there are a lot of implications of being not attached to certain things, or being detached. And ultimately we have to detach with everything, because the nature of everything is to change, to transform. So this verse number 8 has a very far-reaching consequences. Let no man have attachment to anything. Loss of it gives pain. Those who love nothing and hate nothing have no fetters. It's a very, very profound statement. This is a very profound statement. Those who love nothing and hate nothing have no fetters, because their minds are free. They don't categorize the friends and foes. They don't categorize black and white. They don't categorize good and bad. They don't categorize my and theirs. They don't categorize self and others. That's the mind of the Buddha, the mind of non-differentiation, the mind of no discrimination. There is no line of discrimination in their minds, because their minds are free. Their minds are not attached to anything. You see the profundity of the teachings of the Buddha that Baba Ambedkar has brought so beautifully here in the Buddha and Dhamma. This one line itself, those who love nothing and hate nothing have no fetters. And when the minds have no fetters, when the mind has no fetter, what happens to the mind? It goes straight away to Nibbana, to the ultimate bliss, to the peace. As the Buddha says somewhere, and Baba Ambedkar has quoted it beautifully, that there is a boat which is overloaded. So that boat, when it is overloaded, cannot have the speed. So if you want to reach to the other shore, we have to unload a lot of things of the boat. If you are carrying so much of a burden of Namarupa, we can never be free. We can never make a progress towards Nibbana. So love and hate are both fetters. I think we should understand the consequence of this teaching very deeply in our lives. Because sometimes somebody is dear to us and sometimes somebody is, an enemy to us. But the Buddha says, no, you will not attach to that. You will not to attach to friends, or you will not attach to the enemies. Your mind should be universally free. Your mind should be detached. And when that ultimate detachment takes place, we give it back from where we are taken, and we become unburdened. We become unburdened by these burdens of Namarupa. So let me read this verse number 8 again. Let no man have attachment to anything. Loss of it gives pain. Those who love nothing and hate nothing have no fetters. And Baba Ambedkar in the Buddha and Dhamma has talked about the fetters to the Nibbana. In the Buddha and Mass, Baba Ambedkar has talked about the fetters to Nibbana. Why we cannot experience the bliss of Nibbana? Because we love something and we hate something. Our mind is always moving on in the polarity of loving or hating. Isn't it? Love, pema. Pema to jayati soko, pema to jayati bhayan, pema to vimukta sakuto soko kuto bhayan. We suffer a lot because we love something, blindly. So Buddha is not opposed to metta. And metta we have seen, as I am, so they are, very deeply. It's identifying ourselves with others. It's more deeper than the sensual love or the parental love that we cultivate, we experience all the time. There's nothing wrong with this love. But what happens is that if it is not the love based on metta and sati, then it ultimately leads to pain. Let no man have attachment to anything. The verse number 8 goes like this. Loss of it gives pain. Those who love nothing and hate nothing have no fetters. Isn't it? So we when we meditate or when we cultivate sati, we know the impersonal nature of our mind and body. We know that they don't belong to me. Anatta means we know that they don't belong to me. This is not me. This is not myself. And when that happens, the person love nothing and hate nothing and have no fetters. Straight away, all the way going to the Nibbana. And then the verse number 9 again is the repetition of that, what we have studied before. From pleasure comes grief. From pleasure comes fear. He who is free from pleasure knows neither grief nor fear. We can see these gathas in Dhammapada. They're beautifully quoted in Dhammapada. From attachment comes grief. From attachment comes fear. He who is free from attachment knows neither grief nor fear. From lust comes grief. From lust comes fear. He who is free from lust knows neither grief nor fear. From greed comes grief. From greed comes fear. He who is free from greed knows neither grief nor fear. That's the way the Buddha taught, isn't it? So we think that, they look like the same sort of a gathas or the same kinds of teaching. They are not. The pleasure, attachment, lust, and greed, they in a way are the variation of the same thing, isn't it? We crave for something because it gives pleasure to us. And because it gives pleasure to us, we are attached to it. And the more we are attached to it, we become lustful and we greed for it. Isn't it? So, it's a variation of the same thing. In a way, attachment leads to grief. And from attachment comes the fear of losing it. And therefore, we have to understand these very profound verses, verse number 9, 10, 11, 12. They look like the same verses, but they are not. They are showing the degree of our attachment to sensual pleasures, indulgence into sensual pleasures, taking hold of the sensual pleasures, being overpowered or possessed or taken over by the sensual pleasures. So when we are taken over by the sensual pleasures, then our minds become shut, our mind become distorted, our minds become completely deluded. And when our minds become deluded, then we are not able to see the way it is. And because when we are not able to see the way it is, ignorance, we land up in a lot of difficulties and a lot of problems that we have all experienced in our lives all the time. So the verse number 13 is very interesting. He who possesses virtue and intelligence. You see? So the possession of virtue, Shila, and intelligence, Pradnya, who is just, who knows justice, speaks the truth, and he speaks the truth and does what is his own business. He minds his own business. He doesn't interfere, poke here and there, and does what is his own business. Him the world will hold dear. You see? So if you want to be likened by people, if you want to have the blameless life, what one should do? We should possess the virtue and intelligence. We should be just, and very important, we should speak the truth, and we should mind our own businesses. We should perform our responsibilities and duties. Him the world will hold dear. How profound this particular verse is in the verse is in 13, isn't it? So profound. And when verse number 14 goes like this, kinsmen, friends, and lovers salute a man who has been long away and returns safe from afar. So if we have gone for some task, very long distance, and when we come back home safely, our relatives, our friends, and lovers salute us. They think that we have done our duties, we have performed our responsibilities. Verse number 15, in like manner, his good works receive him who has done good. You see how it connects beautifully with the subsection 1, where Baba Ambedkar has brought these beautiful teachings of the Buddha on good, evil, and sin. So if we keep on doing good work, if we are doing the good to the world, we will be always received by goodness. And why sometimes we receive, the bad experience, as Baba Ambedkar said that, we have not done enough good. It's very beautiful. It's very deep. And at the same time, it's so simple. Keep on doing good, keep on doing good, keep on doing good. Don't expect, remain unattached. Isn't it? Don't expect that, reward will come to you. Just keep on doing good, good, good. Avoid evil, even the slightest evil, because it has consequences. Everything has a consequence. And what happens when we cultivate the good, when we do the good, we are always benefited by whatever good we have done. We are received. Our good works receive us because we have done good and gone from this world as kinsman receive a friend on his return. So even if we are gone, our good, this our good done to the world will continue to vibrate. The good in the world is going to be of effect in the world. We see that in the lives of the great people like Baba Sahib Ambedkar. Even if they are gone, the good done by them is still benefiting us. So you can imagine that, when Baba Sahib Ambedkar says that this struggle for him was a ultimate joy for him. Never ever Baba Sahib Ambedkar said that because I suffer a lot because I am working so hard. He never ever complained. For him, the way he strive, he always experienced that bliss, that spiritual joy that comes with doing good to the world. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to just reflect on this verse number 8 again. Let no man have attachment to anything. Loss of it gives pain. Those who love nothing and hate nothing have no fetters. Now see, one Shastri, who was a disciple of Baba Sahib Ambedkar and a Sanskritist, he was also Kabir Panthi, Shankarananda Shastri. He happened to come and work with Baba Sahib Ambedkar afterwards. And one day, Baba Sahib Ambedkar and he was sitting and he recited a very beautiful Doha of Kabir. And there's very beautiful Doha of Kabir. Chaha gayi chinta miti, manwa beparwa. Jinko kachu nahi chahiye, wo hai shahanshah. Means chaha means craving. So the craving has gone. Chaha gayi. Chinta miti. The fear, the vexation of mind has gone because the craving is gone. And manwa beparwa. The mind has become free now. The mind has become, the beparwa means it's not holding on to anything. It has become free now. चाह गई चिंता मिटी मनवा बेपरवा जिसको कुछ नहीं चाहिए जिनको कछु नहीं चाहिए those who desire nothing, they are the emperors in the world. वो है शहंशाह. And Baba Sahib Ambedkar liked this gatha so much that he requested Shankarananda Shastri to write it down and put it in black and white for him. You see, this particular gatha is so important for us to understand as to what it means by giving up on craving and lust, isn't it? So this verse number 8, I think, is the essence of Buddhism. That the mind which is not attached anywhere, the mind which is detached, and because the mind is detached, it is free. And when the mind is detached, when the mind is unburdened of the nama rupa, just like the boat which is unloaded by a lot of stuff speeds up, likewise our minds speeds up towards the nibbana, the supreme bliss, when we are detached. So I'm going to read the entire subsection again. And please bear in mind these very beautiful teachings of the Buddha. And that's how we should cultivate the Buddhist way of life. How do we cultivate the Buddhist way of life on craving and lust? Do not be possessed by craving nor by lust. Means do not be taken over by the craving and lust. The word is possessed. And possess has a connotation of being taken over by. All our lives we are taken over by the craving and lust. Our lives are governed by the craving and lust. And that's what the Buddha says. Do not be possessed. Do not be neurotically paranoid by the craving and the lust. Try to give up the lust and experience the bliss of Nibbana, the highest bliss possible in the world, the peace of Nibbana. Do not be possessed by craving nor by lust. This is the Buddhist way of life, isn't it? This is how the Buddhist lives. Not in a reign of riches is satisfaction of desire to be found. Our desires by nature are unsatisfying, isn't it? That doesn't mean that we should live the life of a pauper or poor life. We should earn the richness so that our human lives become comfort and we can give comfort to others. But however we run after the satisfaction of the desire, as Baba Sahib Ambedkar uses this beautiful word, rain of riches. Even if the richness is raining, the satisfaction of the desire is not to be found, because the desires by nature are grievous and unsatisfying. Even in the pleasures of heaven worlds, he takes no delight. Forget about these sensual desires. But even you understand the heavenly pleasures of the senses, of the mind, all the pleasures that we can experience in the heaven world, we take no delight in that. Then what should we do? His delight is in the ending of craving. I told you two kinds of happiness. One is the happiness that we gain, the pleasure that we get by indulging into the sensuality, by sensual objects. And another pleasure that we get is by giving up on sensuality. And the Buddha says, compared to this, the Nekkhamma Sukh is the highest. His delight is in the ending of craving. He is the disciple of the supremely awakened one, the Buddha. So, how to become the disciple of the supremely awakened one? By ending the craving. In other words, achieving the Nibbana. That's how we become the disciple of the supremely awakened one, the Buddha. And then this gathas from Dhammapad. From craving is born sorrow. From craving is born fear. To him who is wholly free from craving, there is neither sorrow nor fear. The Pali equivalent goes, Tannaya jayati soko, Tannaya jayati bhayam, Tannaya vipamuttasa, muttasa kuto soko, kuto bhayam. From craving is born sorrow, from craving is born fear. To him who is wholly free from craving, there is neither sorrow nor fear. 7th verse, the verse number 7 is very beautiful. He who gives himself to vanity, forgetting the real aim of life and grasping at pleasure. As I said, that the tendency of the desire is to grasp here and there, all the time, repeating all the time, Pono Bhavika, Nandi Raga Saragata, Tatra Tatra Bhindini. So our craving has this nature of grasping at the object all the time, taking delights in the object all the time, here and there, all the time. Our minds are involved in running after the pleasure, sensual pleasures. He who gives himself to vanity, forgetting the real aim of life and grasping at pleasure, will in time envy him who has exerted himself in meditation. So what the Buddha is teaching us here is to exert ourselves in sati, cultivate the awareness of mind and body, cultivate the awareness of 5 skandha. And when we cultivate the awareness of the 5 skandha, we realize the nature of the 5 skandhas, that they are empty of self. They are ever changing. We cannot hold on to them. We cannot, distort our body. The body is the body. The Vedana is the Vedana. We don't try to, mend them. We just try to be mindful of them, just observing them, just observing our body, just observing our mind. We begin to see the nature of mind and body. And when we begin to see the nature of mind and body, we are not detached. We are not attached to it. We are completely detached. And that's why there are 2 ways of life that we can see clearly. One is to continuously indulge into sensuality or indulge into the awareness of our minds and bodies. Sati, we have to exert ourselves in that. It's not easy to be aware of the mind and body. We have to exert ourselves. But the craving for sensuality is automatic. Our eyes naturally wants to seek the pleasure from something beautiful, something pleasant. Verse number 8, as we have seen, is also very profound. Let no man have attachment to anything. Loss of it gives pain. Those who love nothing and hate nothing have no fetters. And when our minds are not fettered by love and hate, our mind straight away goes to Nibbana. From pleasure comes grief. From pleasure comes fear. He who is free from pleasure knows neither grief nor fear. From attachment comes grief. From attachment comes fear. He who is free from attachment knows neither grief nor fear. From lust comes grief. From lust comes fear. He who is free from lust knows neither grief nor fear. So, the variation on the same thing of attachment. Sometimes our attachments are very neurotic. Sometimes our attachments are very light. Sometimes we love something so dearly. Isn't it? Pema to jayati soko, pema to jayati bhayam, pema to sukha vipamutta sakuto soko kuto bhayam. And then the verse number 13. What should we possess? If we should not be possessed by the craving, what should we be possessed of? Virtue and intelligence, sila and pradnya. Who is just, speak the truth, and does what is his own business. We should mind our own business. Whatever is our business, we should do it wholeheartedly. Him the world will hold dear, and that's how the people will like us, because we are doing our work. We are not, interfering here and there. The kinsmen, friends, and lovers salute a man who has been long away and returns safe from afar. So if somebody has gone to a distant country and when they return back, their kinsmen, friends, and lovers salute them. Just like that, whatever good works we have done, In like manner, his good works receive him who has done good and has gone from this world as kinsman receive a friend on his return. So even if they are gone from this world, their goodness is continuously received by their relatives, by their people, and the humanity. Gone is Baba Sahib. Gone is even the Buddha. But their goods, the good done by them, still continue to benefit all of us. And they will continue to benefit many, many human beings in the future to come. Isn't it? So I think what this particular section or part on the Buddhist way of life, we should know as a Buddhist what is our way of life, how should we live our life by doing good continuously. Do good, that's what where the Buddhism begins. Buddhism doesn't begin with this philosophical speculation, it begins with doing good. And when we begin our life, when we continue to do good, keep on doing good. Don't leave a single opportunity to do good. Evil, try to avoid it. The more we try to avoid the evil, the more our life will be full of happiness. That is the part to happiness. Everybody is seeking happiness, but we are seeking happiness in the wrong place, isn't it? So you see, the Buddhist way of life, as Baba Ambedkar has presented here, is very very practical teaching. And I think the more we read about it, as we are reading today, we begin to see the nuances, the details of what Baba Ambedkar presented. We begin to see the implication of that in our lives and the lives of others. So I think we will continue to study this Buddhist way of life. There are 6, 7, 8 more classes on that, and we will have more clarity as to, as a Buddhist, what should we do? How should we live our lives as? So with this, I will stop here and open the class for any discussion, any comments, or whatever you would like to share. So anybody has anything to say? Am I audible to you?
Yes, Mangesh bhai. Yes, yes.
So please go on. If you have any comments to make, anything to say, please.
The craving, but for that you must know, realize that craving has arisen in you. Otherwise, you will not be able to give up. And then you should try to control the craving. And then not only control, we have to destroy this craving and lust.
Good. See, every craving comes from the attachment, and we attach to something thinking that this is me and mine. But when we cultivate the sati, we begin to know that our mind is not ours, our body is not ours. Isn't it? The nature of the body is impure. You understand this? The nature of the body is impure. So if we look at your body within, we see a lot of impurities in the body. Right? Right, Alka bhai?
Yes, yes. And
Okay.
we have to keep continuous watch.
Watch,
And watch
sati.
on the evil passions, sati, mindfulness on evil passions, the craving and greed, lust.
Yes.
And
Then
then
we,
only
when we watch our
get
Vedana
destroyed.
or feelings always leads to suffering.
Yes.
If we love somebody, or it will give us suffering. If we hate something, it will also create suffering. So the nature of Vedana is to lead to suffering. The nature of mind is impermanent. The mind is always moving. And the nature of Dhamma, or the world, or even the Buddha's Dhamma, is that it's empty. The Dhamma is just like a raft. We cannot hold on to it. We cannot hold on to anything that we experience. We have to just let it go. Yes, I'll come in. Alka, ma'am, you want to add something?
Actually,
I think it's either your internet or my internet is problematic.
I,
Okay.
Arise.
Anybody? No.
Sensation,
Hmm.
those feelings depend on the sankhara.
Hmm.
What is already in your mind, the reaction of the Vedna, sensation to that subject,
Hmm.
whether you like it or not. The feeling depend on that. So sankhara is important before having pleasurable or unpleasurable feeling.
Right. But as the Buddha says, Sabbe Sankara Anichati, Yada Pannaya Passati, Sabbe Nibidanti Dukkha Eso Maggo Visuddhiya. So all the Sankharas are impermanent. And if we can see it with our wisdom, then all the suffering is gone. And that is the way to the purification of beings. So we just observe, we just mindfully observe our bodies and mind, and it begins with observing our breathing, as the Buddha taught. And we can begin to ungrasp. We can begin to let go. So if there is one important word that is important in Buddhism, is to let go. Don't hold on. Let go. Let go. Let go.
Vedna is also impermanent.
Vedna is
Sanya is
impermanent.
also, yeah,
Everything
Sanya,
is impermanent.
Sankara, Vinya, consciousness, everything is impermanent.
So realizing it with pradnya is very important. We can say it by words all the time, but when we experience it firsthand by sati, by cultivating sati, then our minds are free. So anybody else? Anyone would like to share or comment on today's class, or any reflections?
So observing your sensation and feeling, you can just destroy, means they are, because of impermanent nature, they remain for a while and then they are gone.
Right. Okay.
Jai Bhim, sir.
Shashank bhai.
Yes. So it's a wonderful discussion on the chapter on craving and lust. And one of the important verse I would like to talk about, verse number 8. Let no man have attachment to anything. Loss of it gives pain. I think in today's 21st century, we always have attachments to many things. And one of the important attachment, I think world is caught up in, it's like, we are holding in our hand, that is mobile. And we are continuously having that attachment 24/7, like right from the beginning of the day towards the end of the day. We have that attachment to that.
I am not attachment. That attachment. I am very much attached to mobile. You are right.
Yeah, but your purpose of attachment is to spread the Buddha, spread the Dhamma,
You
spread
never
the
know. You
Sangha.
never know. Please go on. Please go on.
Yeah. So yes, so my experience is that whenever I keep aside that detached mind at least once per week, like for example, if I keep aside on Sunday that no attachment, I will not see that mobile for the whole 8 hours or whole 10 hours or 4 hours, then definitely I will cultivate that peace of mind. There is no such distracted mind I've developed, and then there is no pain as well, because even if I keep the mobile like 2 or 3 hours away from me, there is no pain. There is no such feeling that, oh, I need to grab that. I need to see that, who sees my post, who likes my post, who commented my post. I don't want that. If I crave for that, then definitely the suffering will follow. So definitely the sorrow will follow. Definitely the fear will follow. And the wonderful verse says that from craving is born sorrow, from craving is born fear. And definitely we all crave for that dopamine. We all crave for that serotonin and oxytocin chemicals, which always continuously generated in our mind in the terms of social media, in terms of all the videos we upload, all the photos we upload. We continuously crave for that, and Buddha's teaching is just free from that. To him is wholly free from craving. There is neither sorrow nor fear. Right? So I think definitely we need to work on this at least once per week, or maybe some couple of hours per week, something. Then definitely we can have a beautiful life, a peaceful life.
I agree with you fully. Because you said that it's like you having a mobile is having continuously attending 10 parties at a time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
One good thing happening in this group, or other is happening in that group, that group, that group. It's such a burden on our consciousness. That's true.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Good. Anybody else, or we have another 3-4 minutes to go. So anybody would like to say anything or comment or offer some clarification, anything? If not, then we will conclude our class here today, and we will meet next week. Thank you so much for joining in today.